Capturing the requirements of our system is an important part of the specification process. And these requirements really fall into two high-level categories: functional requirements and non-functional requirements. So the functional requirements capture what it is that the system should do. So for instance, if we had an online system, we might say the user should be able to log out with a single click. That would be a concrete functional requirement. Whereas the non-functional requirements capture properties that the system should have. Right? So you could say the system should be usable, right? Or should be performant, or should be testable. Now, one thing about these non-functional requirements is they can vary in who they're actually important to. Right? The customer is going to care more about usability, performance, maybe scalability, than the development team, who are going to be more interested in reliability, complexity, and testability. So the different stakeholders will care to different degrees about the varying non-functional requirements within the system. And this ends up being a discussion between the engineering team and customers while they try to figure out what behaviors the system should have. One thing that's really important to keep in mind for these non-functional properties is that they are often in conflict with one another. For instance, if you're thinking about designing a system that you want it to have really low complexity, that is to be quite simple, it might actually have a performance hit that you pay for that. Right? So if you're building a system that, for instance, had several types of caches, right, where you were caching results along the way, of course that would be more complex, but it would be faster. So when you're having this discussion about the non-functional properties, it's important, really important, for all the stakeholders to be involved and really weigh the pros and cons of each of these requirements. Because these decisions that you make will often be at the expense of one or another. Right? Another place where this comes in often is in terms of usability and security. Right? So as we try to add more and more security to our system, it can make it harder and harder for people to actually use in practice. Right, so having a concrete discussion about non-functional requirements is really important early on in the specification process. Now, one thing that's really important to keep in mind when we're thinking about the requirements of our system is they should define what the system is doing, but not how it is that it's doing it. Right, so a concrete example of this would be a sorting algorithm. You might say, hey, we want this list to be sortable in n log n time. And that would be fine. That would be a great functional requirement. But we wouldn't say, we want this list to be sorted with quicksort, because that's really concretely capturing how it is that the developer is going to implement that requirement, and that's really not in the spirit of what we're trying to do during the requirements process.